republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
Let us begin with Lisa. Can we call the roll?
Member O'Sullivan?
Here.
Member O'Connor?
Here.
Member Gracias?
Here.
Member Murphy Peterson? Here. Member Dalton? Member Hardick? Member Saratori?
Here. Okay, we have a quorum. We are ready to go. So the first item of business would be a motion for the acceptance of the bills.
That is found on page 3,
Three? Yes.
on the bottom of page 3. Oh, man, I don't have a pen.
I move that the school board approve the routine business services resolution as presented.
Second.
Okay, any comments or questions? All right, then let's vote, Lisa.
Member O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
Member Gracias?
Yes.
Member Murphy Peterson? Yes. Member Saratori?
Yes, the motion passes. Okay, so at this time, we will now present the 2021 reopening plan. Then Dr. Gay, do you want to start? Or?
Yes, thank you very much. There's a PowerPoint on the screen, but for your convenience, there's a PowerPoint at your desk if it's easier for you to follow either way. I want to start out, as I said many times, as I share with the board, that I'm very proud of all the work that the Oversight Committee has done over the last couple of weeks, working diligently to create a plan that I'm very proud to present and that we all are very proud to present, that we believe is respectful to all our stakeholders. And I think tonight I'll share this with the board. And at the end of our presentation, every member of the Oversight Committee has a little part to play in presenting it tonight. At the end, of course, we'll entertain any questions you have regarding our plan. So this planning began quite some time. This is to provide the best possible academic experience and being safe while adhering to the academic, health, and safety guidance set by the Illinois State Board of Education, IDPH, CDC. As recent as maybe about 4 hours ago, 3 hours ago, we got another 103-page report from ISB on some guidelines on the reopening of schools. So it is very fluid, and we have and will continue to adhere to the guidance from the state and these state agencies. What is very important as we begin to plan is to get stakeholder input. So we did get a student, family, and staff survey, and we got some great results we're sharing with you. About 83.8% of families are likely to send their students to school when we reopen on site. About 73% students, 70% families, and 61% of staff at that point felt somewhat safe to completely safe returning to school on site. And we continued during the last couple of weeks, as recently as this week, to continue to communicate with all staff members, with the getting feedback from them on where we're moving. So some people may be wondering why we're at January. It's not January at all. July 23rd, and some schools we know presented their plan last week, some early this week. However, in District 230, we believe in the collaborative effort. So when you have a collaborative effort, a collaborative process, it takes time to be respectful, to get input, and to really look at the data as you move forward. So we began with 13 subcommittees, including representatives of teacher associations, support staff, and food service. On the screen and on your website, and your packet, you see a list of the 13 committees. And there was an advisory committee. It was an advisory committee to give us input. In the event we went back, what are some of the issues that we need to face with all of those subcommittees? And then from the subcommittee, the oversight committee, which is the 3 assistant superintendents, the 3 principals, myself, Carla's already is, I guess, ex officio, but she keeps all our notes and makes things look pretty and comes up with these designs and all that and make sure that we stay on target. So the plan I want to share with you tonight that again, the Oversight Committee will go in much more detail. We feel aligns with the Restore Illinois plan. So Restore Illinois phases 1, 2, 3 would tie into work on our D230 Proud return to school plan of stage 1 will be fully remote. If the state goes back to 1, 2, and 3 phases, that ties into what we call stage 1. When state of Illinois is in phase 4, which they are now, our D230 Proud has 2 stages, stage 2 and stage 3. Stage 2 is suggesting 25% of students on site on a rotating schedule and move to, at the right time, to stage 3, which is a 50% on-site rotating schedule. The schedule and the actual periods and how it's going to work will be explained in a few minutes. Restore Illinois phase 5 is when there's a vaccine, a readily available vaccine. That is D230 stage 4, fully on site. I would imagine as the state goes from phase 4 to phase 5, and we transition from stage 3 to stage 4, it will be a gradual phase as well as we move to the next phase. One thing I want to make very clear is that the remote will look quite different. The guidelines set by ISB for the COVID-19 shelter order were vastly different as it's going to go into the new school year. When students are remote, and they will be through the 25% and with the 50% in our plan, students will attend class through a live connection daily. Attendance will be recorded for each class period, and quite different from the plan in the spring, traditional grading practices also will be in effect. So moving forward, we are looking forward to welcoming students on site or remotely. We will continue to work to ensure quality instruction delivery for all students on site or remotely. We will continue to follow IDPH health and safety protocols. They are a key component for our return to school plan. We firmly believe the social emotional supports of the students are necessary, and they will be provided by our school personnel on site or remotely. Our guidance will evolve. We will reassess the plan as needed as the guidance changes from state agencies. And I thank everyone for their continued to be compassionate, flexible, and passionate for our student staff is very appreciated and is very, very fluid plan. We believe the benefits of this plan are multiple. It reduces the number of students on campus to approximately 25 to 50% to promote physical distance on buses, hallways, and in classes through stage 2 and stage 3. It allows us, our schools, to adhere to the IDPH and CDC safety protocols through stage 2 and 3. It allows for in-person instruction and connection among students and staff, and clearly address the concerns raised by students, families, and staff regarding motivation to remain engaged in learning, including grades and making attendance count. It does support the academic, social, emotional needs of our students with dedicated check-in time every day, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, first in advisory to check the social, emotional aspects of our students. This provides dedicated time for our staff to communicate with families and students. This allows for continuation of educational virtually should a student need to self-quarantine, but still feel well enough to take part in classes, because we have both. And this structure, we believe, can easily transition to a fully remote should the need arise due to change in Restore Illinois phases or other needs. So the options for our families is a blended on-site remote program or fully remote. At this time, Eric Olson, principal of Stagg High School, will explain the blended on-site remote program.
Well, good evening, everyone. Very good to see all of you. The blended on-site remote plan comprises stage 2 and stage 3 of the D230 Proud reopening plan. This model blends the use of both on-site and remote learning experiences for our students. These two stages divide student attendance to reduce the overall number of students in the school, but will still provide both direct instruction and remote instruction simultaneously. Stage 2 would see 25% of the students in the school on a rotating basis, with all students attending school on site 1 day a week. Stage 3 transitions to 50% of the students on site, with all students attending school twice a week. Those students who are in the school building will follow their class schedule in a traditional manner, moving from class to class. Those who are remote will follow their schedule, attending classes with their on-site classmates virtually at the same time. Therefore, students at home will be attending and participating in all of their classes and following the same schedule. With the D230 Proud plan, flexibility is built in to allow for accommodations for students who receive special education services, English learner services, 504 plan accommodations, and other students who have been identified as needing additional support. Important to note with this plan, and different from the state mandates in the spring, traditional grading practices will be used and attendance will be taken for both on-site and remote learning students. Attendance will be taken each period for both on-site and remote learners. The D230 Proud reopening plan allows families to choose to have their child participate in a fully remote manner. And there are a variety of reasons that families may choose this option. And we believe in the importance of allowing families the flexibility to make this choice for their child. Students who are participating in a fully remote option do not attend school on site. However, they are enrolled and participating in classes with their classmates virtually, with their class schedule, attendance procedures, and grading procedures being the same as their classmates who are on site. Directions and a family declaration form will be sent to families with an August 7th deadline to allow families time to discuss the needs of their child and what plan best fits their needs. Parents make their commitment to a blended on-site or fully remote for the entirety of the first semester or until the state of Illinois moves to phase 5 of the Restore Illinois plan and our district can move to stage 4 of the D230 Proud reopening plan with 100% of students receiving on-site instruction. Now hand it over to my colleague, Mr. Nolting from Andrew High School.
Good evening. Thank you for allowing us to present our plan. As Eric had mentioned, the schedule in general would have essentially students divided into 4 groups based on alphabet. These 4 groups would then be fluid based on if we're in our stage 2 format or our stage 3. In stage 2, one group of students would be live in-person instruction, while the other 3/4 or 75% of our students would be learning synchronously and remotely. And then those students would rotate each day of the week, with the exception of Wednesdays, which for all students and staff would be a remote day. As we migrate into stage 3, then we are able to combine those 2 groups. So in this example, groups A and B together, and then 50% of our students would be in school twice a week for on-site instruction, and the other students would be at home learning remotely. One of the aspects that was something that we are very proud of, and I think one of the members of the Teachers Association leadership referred to as a trailblazing approach to reentry for school, is our first couple weeks back. As you can see, or as you know, as many of you have students yourself, our kids have not been in the building since March. And our staff has not been in the building since March. And now they're coming back to a completely different learning platform based on the circumstances of the pandemic. This approach that you see on this calendar example is a thoughtful and meaningful approach to maximize teacher acclimatization back to the building and adjust their learning platforms accordingly. This platform allows our staff to come back for an extended period of time for institute days and remote planning instruction days, in which they will be working as a collegial team to plan for instruction. We will have 2 days of students, freshmen and transfers coming to the school in groups of A, B, and CD, so groups divided by alpha. And then we will begin an orientation week, which I'll get to on our next slide, that will have a quarter of our students attending live and in person, allowing us to get them used to the process, which will include transportation and other things that will come later in this presentation. And other students will be participating in an orientation experience, like I said, I'll get to in a moment. And then we will be able to, at that point, assess continuation to move to potentially phase 3, where 50% of our students are in building. These additional planning days allow for teachers and administrators to employ the instructional model and adjust to the still fluid, as Dr. Gabe mentioned, even as of today, updates we received from ISB and the IDPH. The quarter attendance provides an appropriate phase-in for students that will also help inform administration that our processes and procedures that we've been planning on this summer are safe and effective for our students and our staff. And then the orientation is an original and significant component. We have to realize at no juncture at the beginning of this year will the school look the same for our kids. We have to make them comfortable and make them familiar and make them aware of what these new expectations are. What you see here is a model of what our orientation would look like. So if you get a vision the week of the 24th, 1/4 of our students will be in school, meeting with their teachers, going through their schedules, getting used to the procedures and processes that we're under obligation to employ. Other students will be participating in online synchronous presentations that will include various topics. Wednesdays will be an orientation to the remote learning day for all students. But these 3 days that students will be participating in orientation meetings will include 3 clusters. One would be led by the main office, which would be including a welcome back, an orientation to the grading process, which will be distinctly different from what they experienced in the previous remote learning platform, orientation to athletics and co-curriculars, whatever that may look like in the next few weeks, and an overview of academic supports and technology resources while during these phases. There'll be a separate presentation from our dean's office. They'll review our PPE expectations, transportation services, parking, hallway expectations, which will be unique, orientation to the symptom screening and nurse services, as well as other topics. And then finally, our guidance. How do you leverage your guidance support services? How do you reach out for social emotional support if needed? How do you go about college and career readiness? Because we're not slowing down on our kids getting ready for life after high school. So that is a little bit of an orientation to our schedule. I'd like to welcome Ms. Tyrell, Dr. Tyrell, excuse me, to the podium.
Thank you, Mr. Nolte. Good evening, everyone. As my colleagues have shared, appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight with all of you to share our plan. Now that you have heard how the blended on-site remote and fully remote options align to stages 2 and 3 of the D230 Proud reopening plan, I will share a bit about the specific bell schedule that students will follow during stages 2 and 3. The bell schedule that you will see on the next slide applies to both the blended on-site remote and fully remote options. A positive component of the plan is that it provides a consistent daily schedule for all students, those attending in person and those attending remotely. As Dr. Gay shared previously, even those students attending remotely will attend through a live connection to class. Each day will begin with advisory, one of the cornerstones of District 230, giving teachers time to check in with students regarding their academic and social emotional needs. Additionally, you will see in the bell schedule that passing periods will be shortened to encourage students to go directly to class and not congregate in hallways. Now let's take a look at the bell schedule. As you can see, 0 hour starts at 8:35 a.m. and advisory at 9:30 a.m. The school day ends at 3 p.m. Periods 1, 3, 7, and 8 are 35 minutes in length, while periods 4, 5, and 6 are 42 minutes in length in order to ensure enough time for lunch periods. As noted on this slide, on Wednesdays, student attendance begins at 10:04 a.m. There will be no 0 hour and no advisory on Wednesdays within the proposed framework. 0 hour class periods are 44 minutes in length on Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday to account for not having class on Wednesdays. And now Mr. Olson's going to come back up to the podium and talk about PPE and physical distancing.
Hello again. So with the D230 Proud reopening plan, PPE and physical distancing must be utilized to provide a safe environment for students and staff. Guidelines from the Illinois Department of Public Health requires that face masks must be used and worn at all times on campus and on the bus. These face masks must meet the standards established by IDPH for use by the general public. Exceptions to mask usage by an individual will only be made in accordance with the guidance of IDPH and through the approval of an individualized health plan process from our Pupil Personnel Services Department and our nurse's office. This approval must occur before the first day of school. Due to the fact that all students and staff will be wearing masks, students and staff will be required to have their IDs visible at all times. Schools will be providing their students lanyards to wear their IDs on. In the District 230 Proud reopening plan, IDs play an important role and will be utilized during the day to also allow students to access other services such as transportation and food services. This will be explained in more detail during this presentation. Schools will be providing one reusable, washable face mask for each student and staff member. Replacement masks will need to be provided by the family, and replacements will also be available for purchase at the school. The D230 Proud reopening plan has been designed to promote physical distancing of students and staff. IDPH and the CDC recommend keeping a 6-foot physical distance in order to avoid close contact. The Illinois Department of Public Health defines close contact for the purposes of consideration of quarantining individuals as an individual who was within 6 feet of a COVID positive individual with symptoms for more than 15 minutes. Physical distancing markers will be placed in common areas such as offices, bathrooms, etc., along with the designation of one-way hallways and stairwells where possible within the school building. Now on to Dr. Wheaton.
Good evening. I want to talk about health certification along with PPE and physical distancing. In order to be on campus, District 230 will adhere to the Illinois Department of Public Health rules regarding students and staff, certifying that they are not presently exhibiting symptoms related to COVID-19. The process for this will be communicated in August. According to the most current IDPH and CDC guidance, those symptoms include fever of 100.4 degrees or higher, cough, shortness of breath, sore throat, chest tightness, extreme fatigue, loss of sense of taste or smell, diarrhea, muscle aches, or headaches. In terms of COVID-19 symptoms, when a student or staff member has symptoms, they must see a medical provider and be fever-free for 72 hours without the use of fever-reducing medication and for at least 10 days in terms of being assessed when their symptoms first appear before returning to school. Even with symptoms or a positive test, if students feel well enough, they may continue learning by attending class remotely. Each of our schools has a registered school nurse on staff who will follow the Illinois Department of Public Health guidelines, including an isolation area for anyone who shows COVID-19 symptoms. In the event that there is a COVID-19 test positive, those with the positive COVID-19 test must follow the Illinois Department of Public Health quarantine rules. A medical release will be required to return to school. Illinois Department of Public Health guidelines will be followed, and those include individuals who did not have close contact with a person who is sick can return immediately after disinfection. Those who had contact with someone who tested positive for COVID-19 or is suspected of having a COVID-19 infection should isolate at home and monitor for symptoms for 14 days. Close contact means the individual was within 6 feet of the individual's symptoms for more than 15 minutes. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Nolting again, who's going to talk about hallways and classrooms.
As we do our best to control social distancing, physical distancing, our hallways and classrooms will be adjusted specifically to accommodate our lower enrollment based on phase 2 and stage 2 and stage 3. We will have increased supervision in the hallway to ensure that students are not congregating and moving as they move forward through the hallways from class to class. We will be incorporating one-way hallways and stairwells wherever possible to hopefully ensure that there are no congestion areas in our hallways. Our water fountains will be shut down. However, we will be encouraging students to bring water bottles because our water bottle filling stations will be available for students as well. And our classrooms will be adjusted in order to maximize physical distancing in accordance to IDPH and ISB guidelines. At this point, we are looking at all desks facing in the same direction and spaced apart. Excuse me. Seating charts will be established and followed so that we do have the ability to do any tracing that we may end up having to do if a student contracts or has symptoms. We are going to designate teacher zones in the classroom. As Mr. Olson acknowledged, we need to remove the opportunity for students and staff to be within 6 feet for 15 minutes or longer. So teacher zones will be established to make sure that that distancing is maintained. And we will be looking at signage that will be posted throughout the building to remind students and staff and visitors potentially of the rules about hand washing, using masks, and maintaining physical distance.
As you have heard throughout tonight's presentation, within stages 2 and 3 of the D230 Proud Reopening Plan, approximately 25 to 50% of our students will be on campus. This framework also allows for significantly fewer students on a bus than the IDPH allows. Distancing protocols will be followed, and students will be required to properly wear face masks. Students will also be required to wear IDs and lanyards, which must be visible. Students will load the bus seats in the back to the front and unload the bus front to back in order to limit interaction and contact. There will be no eating or drinking on buses, and as always, concerns regarding bus issues should be reported to the dean's office. Each school will review parking pass procedures to accommodate more students driving to campus. This should also reduce the number of students riding buses to our schools. Each of our schools will be setting and communicating specific arrival times and doors. The school plans will have specific entrances for walkers, bus riders, drivers, and those students that are dropped off in order to best implement social distancing. Students will go directly to their advisory when arriving. Those students attending in person for 0 hour will go directly to their 0 hour class. Lockers will not be used as we start the school year, but the process will be reviewed as the weather changes later in the semester. Accommodations regarding locker use can be made for students with medical needs. Each of our schools will communicate the specific process through town hall meetings. Just as students will need to go directly to class when arriving to campus, they must exit campus immediately after school, except for those participating in school-approved co-curriculars, which are pending as we follow guidance from the IDPH, ISBE, and IHSA. And now John Lavelle is going to come up to talk about cleaning guidelines and food service.
Thank you. Yeah, cleaning protocols are being enhanced to respond to the need for a heightened level of cleaning. Our Director of Facilities, Dave Keating, has worked closely with our contractor, cleaning contractor, and communication has been ongoing. Once a plan is approved, meetings will occur to finalize a cleaning protocol. Our transportation coordinator, Keisha Williams, and I have both visited with each of our transportation carriers and have reviewed processes and procedures for cleaning the buses. And the chemicals they're using have been reviewed by our cleaning team and approved to be CDC-approved cleaning products. Besides nightly cleaning and cleaning throughout the day, deep cleaning will be performed on Wednesdays and Saturdays. Additional electrostatic sprayers have been ordered for each building to be able to cover large areas in an efficient manner. Hand sanitizer stations are being added near each washroom by entrances and in common areas. And Mr. Keating has also ordered disinfecting wipes, and a supply will be provided in each of the classrooms. Moving on to food service. Principals have been working to identify areas at each of the buildings to accommodate added spaces for students to eat lunch. System will be in place so students are directed to go to their assigned eating areas. The use of dividers is being explored since new guidance came out yesterday, allowing large spaces to be divided into more than one area. It's important that we get the kids to lunch as quickly as we can, so finding spaces close by the cafeteria is important. Congestion in eating areas will be reduced because juniors and seniors will be assigned study halls. There will be no self-serve stations in the cafeteria. The Director of Food Service, Mary Morgan, has developed both hot and cold lunch options with some level of variety, but selections will be reduced considerably. Face masks can be removed once students are seated where they can maintain social distancing. Payment scanners have been purchased and communication is planned to only allow a cashless, touchless process for checkout. The cashier will also have the ability to look up students in the system or to manually enter an ID, but students will not be using a keypad at checkout. Breakfast and afternoon grill will be eliminated to avoid students congregating at these times in the morning and afternoon. And just after 3 o'clock, food service will be distributing frozen take-home items to those students who wish to buy or receive meals for days they are not in attendance. These meals will be available for both free and paid students. Dr. Driver's up next.
Good evening, everybody. It's nice to see you in person.
Yes.
Hope everyone's enjoying their summers to the best of their abilities. My pleasure being here tonight. I have the privilege of sharing our plans for social emotional learning, technology, and co-curriculars. For social emotional learning, as always, our staff remain ready, willing, and able to provide services for all of our students. Our psychologists, our social workers, our counselors are looking forward to welcoming our students, whether it's through advisory, whether it's through individual meetings, whether it's through virtual or face-to-face meetings when the students are in the building. We are ready to go with our students. Our advisory, as you heard earlier from our principals, are going to be in the first period of the day to welcome our students in, and they'll be scheduled every day for that extra relationship building with our students. We know that this is going to be a critical component of our students' school day. We're looking at ways to design additional supports for our staff to be prepared to work with our students. We know that many of our students will be experiencing a lot from where we left them off in March. So we need to be ready to support our students on their return in. For technology, under the leadership of our brilliant CTO, Mr. John Connolly, again, we've been one-to-one with our technology for years now, so our students are very well used to having their Chromebook supports. So we've been doing this already for a while. Our staff is also very well prepared working with our technology. We're focusing on supporting staff and students on virtual learning opportunities, as well as expanding our blended learning opportunities. Our students, we've worked very efficiently, Mr. Connolly, again, under his leadership, ensuring all of our students have technology supports at home and internet at home through offering hotspots. And we'll be very quick to assist our incoming 8th grade students, particularly students in need that might need internet service as well. So we'll be working at ways to identifying our students to make sure they have the tech that they need. Co-curriculars are a little bit different. As Dr. Gay explained earlier today, the rules of the game change daily. We're watching very closely to see how this proceeds. And we'll be following guidance from IDPH, ISB, and IHSA. We're hoping to be able to run some of our extracurriculars. If they're approved, we hope to run them, mostly virtual, and our main goal will be safety. And we want to try to have our students have as many experiences as they possibly can here at the high school, but we need to ensure that they are safe in doing so. So that's an update from the tech, co-curricular, and SEL point. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Dreyer. I'm going to cover the other two stages of D230 Proud 1 and 4. So stage 1 is if Restore Illinois is in phase 1, 2, 3, and that's a fully remote plan. The fully remote plan will mirror the blended on-site remote plan as much as possible to assure that if we do go to stage 1, we have a smooth transition for our students between the stages. If fully remote, the same bell schedule will be used as Dr. Tyrell talked about earlier. All the classes will be held 5 days a week, the same as the blended on-site remote plan, and we will continue with traditional grading and attendance procedures will be in place. Also, Special Services Department will communicate with our families to assure that accommodations are being met as possible. IEP provisions will be met, and special programs to communicate to address specific needs, as always, part of D230. Co-curricular sponsors and advisors will develop plans to promote participation in remote setting whenever possible. Our amazing PPS service team will be available remotely. We will continue with our free and reduced lunch for students. And as always, the district will follow the state IDPH CDC guidelines, which may require us to change our plan as we move along. And D230 Proud Stage 4, again, aligns with Restore Illinois Phase 5. That's our fully on-site plan. That is only possible if a vaccine or cure is readily available. And District 230 will move to fully on-site when Illinois moves to Phase 5 in accordance with state guidelines, but I'm confident we'll have to transition to that as well. Now, Carla will explain the communication plan.
So we realize that this is a lot of information that we just shared with the board in our presentation tonight. So we have a robust communication plan in place to make sure that our families, students, and community understand the plan, can consider their options, and make the choice that is right for their family. So tonight we are presenting the presentation for your approval. Tomorrow, if approved, the communication plan and the choice form for parents to let us know which decision they have made in stage 2 will be sent out through phone, email, text, mobile app, website, social media. We've also created some videos, and we're in the process of translating our documents into the top languages that our families speak to make sure that everyone has the information that they need. That information will all be available at our dedicated website, d230.org/COVID-19. Once families have the information in their hands, they will then have the opportunity to attend virtual meetings that will be held by each of our campuses. So STAG will hold their virtual meeting on Thursday, July 30th. And Sandberg and Andrew will hold their meetings on Tuesday, August 4th. Specific details and invitations will come directly from those campuses. And an important date to understand is that Friday, August 7th is the deadline to choose an option, the blended on-site remote or the fully remote option. And I'm going to walk us through the choice form. If Mr. Nolting, would you mind clicking on that button for me on the silver computer?
Silver.
Sorry. Oh, sorry. I apologize. I walked away from the microphone. Shoot, I can't get to it. I apologize for that. How our computer is set up, I can't actually click on the form at the moment, but the form is very easy to fill out. It's just a matter of a few questions. You'll be asked to select which school you attend, which option you are picking, and then there are a couple specific questions to those particular options. You hit submit, and the information has been sent to the school. That will come out with the plan tomorrow to families, and it'll be a very easy process for people to go through.
I'd like to add to that choice form. It also talks about, also parents will give us an idea how they're going to transport their students via bus, walk, drive, drop off. It also asks what kind of, they plan for lunch, bring their own lunch, buy a lunch, or in between. It helps us plan for lunches. We're suggesting sack lunch. I don't know. I say these words are like, who thinks of these words? But brown bag lunch, sack lunch. I don't know these, you know.
So that people know that.
Right. So it will help us determine how, with our buses, you know, numbers on bus as well as lunch. So I think Mr. Olson put this form together. I think, am I missing anything else on there?
No, but included in there are just reminders of the procedures for everything, and just double check this outline. You know, when you select fully remote, you're selecting for the semester reminders that if you're coming on site or selecting the on-site remote, that you're required to follow all of the guidelines outlined by the district and school that are aligned with IDPH and CDC. So all of that is built into the system as checks and double checks and reminders.
I mean, as you can see, there's, you know, I thank the Oversight Committee for their participation. You see much work has been put into this plan, much thought, much, a lot of work, and much work to come. If the board approves this plan tonight, we know we have a lot of work ahead of us. We have a lot of work and solidifying the professional development that has to take place there when the staff comes back. We have a lot of work that's going to be done with the buildings and getting prepared, which they have been working on that. But again, that's why we're presenting this tonight, so we can answer questions of the board. We will have an opportunity in a few minutes. We have no public comment present, but we do have some comments that were sent to the website today, or yesterday, today, last couple of days, which we'll read out loud, so they're part of the record. But Mr. Siratori, I don't know if you want to see if there's any board questions before we read those. You want to read those first, or?
Yeah, no, I'd like to.
Or any thoughts on the plan? The board may have any thoughts on the plan.
Yeah, I mean, again, as Dr. Gay just said, I mean, I'd like to thank everybody who was involved in this. I mean, I know that you guys have put in hours upon hours upon hours to put this together. And you have taken every option into consideration when you've made this plan. And I know you've come up with the plan, and then the state changed the rules and you had to start from scratch again. And you've done that numerous times. And, you know, this plan, to me, is done with everyone's safety in mind as much as possible. We know nothing is perfect, but nothing will be perfect. But I just want to thank every one of you for everything you've done with this, because this is really pretty solid to me, and you've done an awful lot here. And there is a lot of information, so before we get to the community comments,
Yes.
we'll see if any of the board members had any questions. So does anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead, Melissa.
You stated that meals will be provided for even those kids remote learning. So how do we get the meals to them?
Yeah, the meals, as I said, after 3 o'clock, meals will be available for pickup. Families come and pick them up, or if the student is in attendance, you know, on the ABCD schedule, they would be able to pick up their meals at home
For the rest of the week.
For the rest of the week, okay.
Yeah.
And one other quick one, health certification must be provided to board the bus. So is it like a piece of paper? Is it a form?
What is that? Self-certification is something we're still working on.
Okay.
We're still waiting for our Skyward, I don't put anyone on the spot here, but the Skyward is working. That's our management system. Is that the right word? Student management system. And they're working on a system that we can connect quickly, easily to ourselves. We're still working on the details of that. Our attorneys made it very clear we have to be consistent on the way they come. So all the bus drivers, all the bus students have their one plan. It could be different for walkers or kids coming in. So that plan, and I think I've shared with you in the past, that we're still finalizing that with the state, finalizing that with the governor's office, and I believe Skyward is looking at some, I missed a meeting, I think this week, is looking at a plan that may assist us. Is that correct?
Great.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I did have a couple questions. Bob, on the initial school opening up through Labor Day, we're in stage 2. So when we come back after Labor Day, is the plan to stay in stage 2 or is it to go to 3?
I can answer that. Sorry, I don't.
Okay,
We're going to watch the next 2 weeks. When the kids come back, we're going to watch the metrics. We're going to see what's happening. You know, I always say it's easy to add and subtract. We may not go right to 50. Maybe we go to 35. Maybe we go to 37. I don't know. We may ease ourselves into that as the readiness of the staff, the readiness of the kids, the readiness of the families. I think we live in stage 2 and 3 for a while under phase 4. We're going to be deliberate. We're going to be respectful. We're going to be thoughtful as we move. So I don't think we should set a date. We should look at the data.
okay. All right, and then my other question is probably for John, and you may not have this answer, but since we are dealing with teenagers, I can imagine that we're gonna have them, some of them will show up in the morning to get on the bus and have forgotten their mask. So will the buses have extra masks? Will they have to go home and the bus waits for them, or?
Yeah, and talking to bus companies, we've already discussed having a supply of masks. We would be
Providing it.
a supply, at the outset. If a student continually comes without a mask, we'll have to talk about that. Are we going to charge that person for mask and the cost of the mask at least, so it doesn't get out of hand. But, definitely in those first days, it's going to be natural. Some kids are going to run out the door and forget.
Yeah.
We'll be ready for that.
And when we're at 50%, we're talking about how many students on a bus?
Yeah, between, 20, maximum of around 20.
And now we're talking about 25%, so we're going down. And the state was allowing 48, 42?
47.
47. The state was allowing 47. At 50%, we're around 20, 22. Now we should be 10 or 11 on a bus. So I think we feel comfortable with the amount of kids on a bus with the mask. I do think realistically, if a student misses, doesn't have the mask like a week or so, we may want to call home. We may want to see how we can help with the problem. Maybe something else we need to talk about, and it's something we can help.
Well,
And we're going to have them at the doors for guests, any guests coming in the building, visitors, whatever, they're going to be, they have to have the mask come in. They don't, we're going to have one though, because whatever, we're going to make sure we have one. And they're going to be escorted to where they have to go and come back. And that may make some people unhappy because they may have to wait for the escort, but we think that's the right thing to do.
Yeah, I would agree.
That we're going to.
I had a question on lunch. When we have 25% of the students there, would it be better to just, let's take Sanford, they've got 3,000 kids, actually less than that.
Yes.
And at 25%, that's 750 students. You have 3 lunch periods, that's 250.
We have 6 lunch periods. AB.
Well, yeah, I'm getting to that, yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So you have 3 lunch periods, so that's 250 students, generally speaking, probably less, probably a lot less, per full lunch period, okay? When you're at 25%. If you're looking at 50 students per pod, per place, if you have 4 gyms and a lunchroom, I may even talk about the PAC or anywhere else. Would it make more sense to keep those students there for the full hour instead of having those students go to a classroom, which is not as open and not as much space? It might be complicated because now when you go to 50%, you might have to change something. Just something to think about.
And that's something to think about. I do think the freshmen and sophomores are already assigned for half hour.
Yeah, our freshmen and sophomore students across all 3 buildings are already assigned to study halls. And by assigning juniors, seniors to study halls, we think that we can get to a more manageable spot in terms of the number of facilities within our building. But we're already digging into our schedules to look at how we can be smart with those placements into study hall and lunch and designate different areas.
Yeah, I don't know this. I'm just thinking, is it better off having 50 students in one of the gyms for a full hour rather than a gym for part of the time and a smaller classroom for part of the time? Just something to think about.
If based on our numbers, Mr. O'Sullivan, I think we're gonna need those spaces for both parts of the full hour. So we could be in a little bit of an issue if we try to assign.
Well, no, that'd be the full 250 would be both parts of the lunch hour. Because you're gonna 125 for 6A, 125 for 6B. Just again, something to think
It
about.
is something, to think- no, it is, and this is the part of fluid, and if the board approves this plan, we start running, with some of these plans, and a lot of it individual schedules that we looked at. I mean, and plus, we don't also know how many people will choose remote, which will dictate possibly less than 25%. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
We don't have that number.
That's it.
Okay, anybody else? Go ahead, Sue.
I just had one question in regards to our nurses. Will they be provided special training? Is there any special protocols being put in place for them as we start the year?
Yeah, the
And
nurses.
Is the state mandating something?
I honestly don't know if the state's mandating training, but there will be training for the nurses. There is, we are looking at, there's isolation rooms that are necessary. There are, our nurses are phenomenal. We'd have to work with, IDPH, CDC to make sure all the guidelines are followed for nurses, because there are some students who come down, for medication throughout the day. There are students who come down because, not COVID, but, just
Every day.
being a high school student. So all that will be taken into account. Again, the nurses are phenomenal, and they will work with all the guidelines and training when necessary.
Anybody else?
I do believe we have 19, correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Lisa? Around 19, so at this point, they will be read into the record for eternity, I don't know.
Yep, at least until the minutes are. Type fast, Lisa.
All right, so this is from Dana Birch. My name is Dana Birch. I'm a member of the District 230 Teachers Association and a teacher at VJA. If you had asked me the 2019 school year would end and where we would be throughout the summer of 2020, I never in my wildest dreams would have imagined we'd be in the middle of a global pandemic. However, we are. Unfortunately for the USA, including Illinois, we are not anywhere close to having overcome this disease. Just today, cases in Illinois alone have set a new high since we ended in June. As a teacher, I understand the need for in-person contact and instruction, and as I feel there truly is no substitute. However, the liability here just seems way too high at this juncture to allow anyone back into the building like this. I too, as a parent, am struggling with what to do with my own children. We've already made arrangements to homeschool my preschool-aged daughter. We are terrified to send my son to kindergarten, even though we know he thrives on being in school. He will also probably remain home and work remotely. I myself am worried that I will contract it and pass it to my family, or worse, end up in the ICU or death. I really feel we should remain remote for now and reevaluate maybe monthly or at mid-semester. There is just way too much risk to be involved. The reality that even just one student or staff member or even their family members could actually die to this all due to us all being back in school should be enough for us to remain remote for now until more reliable treatment or vaccines are available. Thank you for allowing me this opportunity to voice my concerns. This is from Will Hung. I have medical conditions along with my daughter's grandmother, which puts us at high risk. What is the plan for going back to school? From Patricia Hunnell, I am a grandparent of an incoming freshman, and I am very concerned about returning to school next month. My granddaughter has several medical issues, which make a typical school experience risky given our current circumstances, and I am immunocompromised, and that puts me at very high risk should I contract COVID. I hope you will consider at-home learning options for children at risk. From the Kennys, good afternoon. I have been a teacher in the district for over 10 years. I am also a proud D230 graduate. I am also a member of the Teachers Association. I first want to extend my gratitude towards the district and committees for working tirelessly on a plan during these unprecedented times. I cannot imagine the stress the district is under right now in coming up with a plan. I assume we have many D230 parents who would like school to be back in person instruction. I'm a parent myself, and remote learning was not easy for us in my home. However, I am putting aside my frustrations with teaching my own children in order to keep them safe. I firmly believe we should start the school year under a remote learning model, as other districts in our area have chosen to do. I'm sure you're receiving an abundance of emails from teachers in regard to the safety of our students, staff, and families. I stand by my colleagues in all of these valid points. But the focus of my email is a little different. I would like to focus on time. Implementing a plan such as the one drafted by the district, in my opinion, is wasting time. If this plan follows through and we begin the year in-person instruction, we will inevitably move to e-learning in a matter of weeks or days. And this may come with no warning. Teachers will then have to toss the plans that they've worked tirelessly over the last half of the summer to adhere to this new split schedule and throw together a remote learning plan. No one would have predicted what this past spring looked like. We had no choice but to scramble at the last minute to get a plan in place. But this does not have to be the case this time around. We know that if we start in-person learning, we will end up with cases quickly and will ultimately have to shut down and move to a remote learning plan. Is it really worth the health, safety, and yes, the time of all of this to enter our building for a week or two? I really hope the district considers starting the year of remote learning. This will give teachers enough time to collaborate and plan effectively, and will keep our students and families safe. Thank you for your time and consideration. From Kathleen O'Connell, I hope this email finds you well. After reading the revised plan, I continue to have concerns about reopening schools. In the new plan, we are putting people at risk for only 35 minutes of instruction per class a week. Is 35 minutes worth the potential of exposing our students, ourselves, and our families? I personally don't think it is worth it when we can e-learn, which guarantees everyone's safety. Also, will the schools now be doing temperature checks, since there won't be as many students to check each morning? Too many teachers are high risk or live with someone who is high risk. How do we say that 35 minutes is more important in people's lives? I know one teacher who is currently looking to have to move to a studio apartment because he can't be near his wife who is high risk. My 18-month-old daughter spent the first week of her life in critical condition, hooked up to every machine possible to help her breathe. She is now doing great, but I am terrified that COVID will do to her lungs if I expose her to it. These are just two examples of teachers who have lots at stake here. I understand that this is a difficult situation for everyone. We all want what is best for our students, staff, and our community. I ask that you keep this in mind when making decisions about how to proceed this year. From Emily Moser, hello, I just wanted to ask, as a parent of this community for 22 years, I would like to know why it's up to the school board to decide what's best for my child. Have you considered their well-being over the last 4 months of the stay-at-home matter? Some factors that need to be addressed: when children are feeling confused, highly anxious, or emotional numb, their ability to create creativity in schoolwork at home is impaired. Adjust expectations about school performance accordingly to focus on their emotional ability to cope. Until the brains are working better by learning how to control their emotions, they might not be able to retain much new information. With this to take into consideration, what is the future going to be like? How will they adapt? Anger, frustration, moodiness, and continual irritation. This leads to a lot of anxiety, stress, and depression. As a parent of a soon-to-be senior, can you please address this? Thank you for your time. From Kathleen Cordova, first of all, thank you for your dedication and service to our district. I appreciate all of you. I also understand you take your safety seriously and cannot meet in person tonight. I respect your decision. Teachers are the reason our children succeed. They gave us students hope when COVID hit in the spring that they will preserve this, and they did. They are the reason why District 230 is so successful. We have amazing teachers who have shown their grit, stamina, and perseverance. They had the rug pulled out from underneath them and continue to make our district proud. These same teachers who were supported tremendously in the spring are asking you, the board, to keep them and the students safe and having classes return through remote learning. STAG teachers submitted 18 pages of concerns regarding the blended reopening plan. 60% of our teachers in our district do not feel safe returning to school. Our district has the capacity to do remote learning and do it great. We have spent a large amount of money on technology, and we can successfully educate all of our students in the safety of their home. Safety is and always should be the #1 priority for teachers and students. Teachers are children themselves, many of whom have met vulnerable parents. These vulnerable parents are the voices of reason for our teachers. They give them strength, they are their best friends, and they are often the reason behind so many of our teachers going into education. Teachers are also parents themselves, many of whom have young school-age children, some of which are also vulnerable. These vulnerable parents and children cannot afford to get sick, neither can teachers. We do not feel comfortable sending our children to school. Many teachers have felt anxiety, stress, and fear over this reopening plan. Their mental health has taken a beating during COVID. They are juggling multiple hats all at once and simply walking a tightrope to help in order to survive. Remote learning is not easy. In fact, most teachers will tell you it's harder than in-person instruction. If we are willing to do more work, it should mean something. We are not invincible. While many teachers wear capes, we simply do not have a COVID cape, not yet anyways. We are human. This virus will attack. It is inevitable that it will spread in schools. Please support your teachers and students now more than ever. We are counting on you. Thank you for listening. From Lori Dulek, thank you for the opportunity to share our thoughts. I'm a proud staff teacher and Teachers Association member. I have been unsettled and worried about the return to in-person learning since June. I am concerned about the health and safety of my students, their families, and my colleagues. I am also worried that I may bring this virus home to my children. I am upset at the idea of not being in my classroom with my students, but I realize it will be far more devastating if one of my students or a family member or I, as their teacher, contract this potentially deadly virus. I have been given the responsibility to protect and nurture my students. Their safety is my highest priority. Returning to school at this point puts them and all of our staff at risk. If medical professionals and scientists insist on quarantines and social distancing are the best ways to prevent the spread of this virus, it would be counterproductive to create an atmosphere where students and staff are gathering and breathing in the same air for hours at a time. I'm asking you to do the right thing, despite the fact that remote learning is not the way anyone wants to begin the school year. If tonight's board meeting had to be held remotely because conditions are dangerous, please consider the safety of hundreds of people gathering in the same building for hours. Our district was one of the few that had a solid remote learning plan last year, and I'm proud of the technology we have implemented to prepare our students. Instead of creating two sets of plans for in-person and remote learning, please allow us to spend the days leading up to school in preparation of solid remote learning lessons. Our plans will provide continuity because they will also allow us to prepare for the inevitable a surge in the virus that will eventually result in another quarantine. I've attached a link to an article posted in NBC News site entitled Illinois' 1,624 new coronavirus cases makes highest daily rise since May. Thank you for your consideration. From Dan Dulek, my name is Daniel Dulek. I'm a teacher at STAG and a D230 Teachers Union member. I'm writing to you today to strongly encourage you to reject administration's plan to return to in-person learning in August. I am very concerned for the safety of our students as well as myself. Our district has gone to great lengths to create schools that are technologically advanced. We have given every student a laptop computer, and the staff has been well trained in using technology in the classroom. While we all want to be in the classroom teaching, I believe it is the best interest of our students and staff to begin the year utilizing the remote learning we have worked so hard to establish. We really need to listen to the scientists and doctors who are telling us that quarantines work. Look at what happened in Florida and Texas when they opened up too soon. Our district has always been an example for South suburban districts to emulate. Let's continue to lead by making a decision that is based on scientific evidence and sound logic. Thank you for your time. From Rich Keurig, my name is Richard Keurig and I'm a union member of District 230. I thank you for your constant contribution to our students, families, faculty, staff, and many stakeholders of the communities that you serve. I am emailing you today to let you know that I am not the only union member who is in favor of starting the school year off with remote learning, and thus not in support of your proposed plan. I can go on for hours about why we should start school with remote learning, but I will just echo the words of multiple superintendents around the state, from down south to our own region. It will be difficult to follow CDC guidelines during this time, putting the students, teachers, staff, and even parents at risk because of the disease transmission, and losing even one student or one family member to COVID-19 to transmission from a student due to hybrid or face-to-face teaching at this time is losing one too many. There is too much at stake at this point and too much uncertainty with going back to our buildings between 500 and 800 students and staff members in a building at one time. Even going back 25% would not follow CDC guidelines and putting students, staff, and parents at risk. Numbers are up as a whole. Numbers of 10-19, our demographic, and 20 to 29-year-olds are at an all-time high. Even our president wants us to wear masks now, a complete 180 from earlier in the spring. We need to remember that earlier in New York had high numbers due to sending the elderly back to nursing homes, and that was an ignorant initial response to the pandemic. Now that we have more science to back up the data, we must do what is right for our students and start with remote learning. Thank you for your time. From Colleen Gelfi, as a parent of a student at BJA and a District 230 union member, I am one of the 83% of our community members who said we are ready to send our kids to school in-person instruction. After reviewing the most recent draft of the reopening plan, I have a few questions and concerns. To be honest, this plan is unnecessarily complicated. With the expectation that 75% of our students attend via live connection, while the other 25% are in class, this plan only leads itself to remote teaching. With the structure, why have students in the building at all if teachers have to conduct the same lesson with teachers remotely as in class? I was under the impression that in-person learning would mean I can engage with students seated before me while the students at home worked on other tasks. But with this structure, the student in class will serve as a live audience for my remote session. Also, one day of in-person instruction for 30 minutes is simply not enough. Why not 2 days? And what has to change in order to transition students to 2 days a week? It is vitally important for teachers to build connections with students in the first couple of months in case we have to transition to fully remote learning later in the year. And that can be the best achieved through in-person instruction. Students need more time in class. Thank you for your consideration. From Jill Wright, I am writing to you as an employee of District 230 and a member of the D230 Teachers Union. I feel fortunate to have spent my career at a school district that has always strived for innovation, equity, and progress. This past spring, despite all the challenges with the quarantine brought, I was so proud that D230 had everything in place for e-learning. While so many had to scramble to transition, and while the grading mandate was not one that encouraged every student to participate to their fullest, I found that the majority of my students did make progress. Some of my students even thrived, especially those who tended to have anxiety and or attendance issues during in-person school. I do not envy the difficult decisions that are before you at this juncture. I know that the plan to return to school this fall is one that has been a labor of involving hours of thought. It represents the best effort to meet the many academic, social, and health needs of our students. The flaw in the plan is the same as the flaw in the plan of nearly every school district in our country. There are simply too many unknowns. What if? What if it is too soon and even one student, teacher, staff, family member loses their life because of exposure tied to the return? What if the long-term effects from contracting COVID-19, because statistically there will be school-related infections that are just beginning to be understood, are more dire than we believe? What if we ended up having to run to fully remote learning because of an infection or because of a state mandate? As a scientist, I have spent my career evaluating information and using this to inform my decisions. I'm not an alarmist. I'm someone who lives in fear. I fully believe that this pandemic has a finite timeline and that a vaccine is on the horizon. However, scientific thought has taught me patience. Patience to know when the most prudent thing to do is to wait for more data. Now is one of those times. Everyone is anxious to return to normalcy. I can't imagine a fall without the excitement of meeting new classes in person, introducing students to the fun of physics, listening to the marching band practice outside my office window, homecoming, all the traditions, the newness that make me love my profession. But the proposed hybrid learning is not going to bring normalcy. The time in history is just never going to be normal. Since the normalcy that we long for is not possible, I'm asking you to keep us safe. Our district has the resources to offer quality education remotely. To me, this is the chance we have been waiting for, to put the investment in technology and training to the test and prove to ourselves that it has been worthwhile. This pandemic is not going to last forever, and patience may be our very best ally in the return to normalcy. Only history will show whether we return too soon, but I guarantee in the historical context, 2, 3, even 6 months will seem a short time to have had to be patient. Please consider full remote learning in District 230 until there are fewer what ifs. My thoughts are with all of you, and I thank you for your incredible service to District 230. From Gordon Engelhardt. The disappointment of the district's back to school calendar is gut-wrenching. I continue to see the statement of students' well-being, so let's look at it from a vantage point in action. Currently in Illinois, under stage 4, the largest establishments that are open are restaurants, hospitals are the exception. While eating establishments are limited to 50% capacity, there are none that will hold a minimum of nearly 1,000 people interacting and changing who they sit with or walk with for 7 hours a day. Staff would face these numbers for an added 4 days a week. The number of potential exposures students would face to this highly infectious COVID-19 virus would be unprecedented. No establishment other than hospitals have had so many people in such constant proximity for such an extended amount of time. Even sporting events have less participants, and those individuals are tested continuously. I do not see in this plan that everyone will be tested daily. Temperature do nothing if a person is asymptomatic. CDC and World Health shows studies that asymptomatics are the super spreaders of this virus. If one student gets sick, what will be the repercussion? If that person is asymptomatic and spread the virus to their friends, staff, and family, then what? If they are unlucky and die, would you say, if only we hadn't? I watched my wife die. She was on a ventilator for 3 weeks. Her cause of death came as a total surprise. I had no choice. How I wish every day that I could have prevented it. The members of the board, however, do have a choice. You could say we are not willing to expose our children to the potentially lethal virus. Yes, education is very important, but I would contest that a person's life is far more important than in-person education. For staff, our risk is compounded 4 times. We will be in contact 4 days a week, 7 hours a day, and we are the oldest population who are at risk of complications of this virus. We, unlike students, are not given the opportunity to teach, learn remotely. What is the option for those staff members with diabetes, obesity, age, COPD, etc.? This in-person learning at this time is a gamble that no one will get sick over the next 18 months, a gamble that would affect our lives and our families' lives forever. You have an opportunity to protect our students and community by issuing remote learning for the fall semester. Is it ideal? In a world with COVID-19, no, but we are in this pandemic. Remote learning is far more ideal than the risk of any student, staff, and family member becoming sick. Is the health and well-being of anyone in our schools worth the risk of in-person learning over remote? By action, that is what this plan is saying. I beg you to consider and implement remote learning for the fall semester of 2020. From Catherine B. Hello. I am a former student and current taxpayer of District 230, and I have many, many concerns about your plans to reopen. I have to say I'm appalled that you are willing to risk your employees, co-workers' lives, and your students' lives by opening the school. How ironic that you did not feel safe enough to have this meeting in person due to COVID-19, yet you want your schools to be packed full of thousands of students and teachers. I am so thankful for the education I received at Stagg High School. I am so thankful for my teachers that truly care about my life, as well as my well-being. So many of them are still employed at Stagg, and I am absolutely horrified that you are choosing to put their safety and their lives at risk. Please don't do this. If you open the schools, it would be a slap in the face to your students, teachers, and every single essential worker that has put their life on the line for us, not to mention the hundreds of thousands of people who have died from this horrific virus. From Kristen Corcoran. My name is Kristen Corcoran. I'm a member of the Teachers Association and a teacher at VJA. My concerns for the proposed plan are for our staff and our students. In May, I felt hopeful that our nation would be a better place pandemic-wise. Unfortunately, this is not our reality. One of my greatest joys is being in the classroom with my students, and I've been lucky enough to do this for the past 15 years. I'd like to stay healthy enough to do this for at least another 15 years. Please consider the proposed plan in favor of remote to start with a reassessment after the certain amount of time. Not only is it the safest option and follows the most current research available, it also allows teachers to focus our efforts on making remote teaching the best it can be for our students. The risk of this plan is not worth the reward at this point in time. I'm an educator, a devoted one. I'm also a daughter, wife, aunt, mother, friend, and I'd like to be all of these things for many years to come. I want my students, coworkers, and families to have the best possible chance at staying healthy. Any choice other than starting remote and reassessing is not worth the risk. There are too many unanswered questions at this time. From Michael Murray. My name is Michael Murray, and I'm a D230 Teachers Union member. I would like to strongly encourage you to not accept the administration's current plan for returning to school. I'll simply give what I think is my best reason. What's the rush? Why not step back, let other districts try it and see what happens? Looking at our state versus Wisconsin in recent weeks, I think it is an apt comparison. We remained shut and our numbers have dropped. Wisconsin opened up and their numbers are rising. Heck, tonight's meeting is going to be held remotely for health reasons. Why would students returning to our schools feel any safer? From Kristen Marsden. Hello, I'm a union member, teacher, and a parent, and I have multiple concerns for the updated school opening plan. How can administration hold a virtual meeting to ensure the safety of all, yet our reopening plan recommends students and teachers at risk in-person classes for the next 3 weeks? Research has shown that the virus spreads through air quicker than indoor environment. Since the entire school building share the same HVAC, the virus would spread to all very quickly. The Illinois Federation of Teachers Unions, the IEA, CPS Union, and many other teachers unions have demanded full remote learning, and I believe we should too. How can we ensure proper home health checks when students or staff members may be asymptomatic? 25 to 50% of our student population is roughly 500 or more students plus staff members. That is too great for a number of individuals in an indoor environment. What will our district do if students cannot wear a mask due to certain health issues, or if a student refuses to wear them? If a student takes their mask off in a classroom, hallway, or cafeteria, then people will potentially be exposed. If a student or staff member tests positive and we are required to quarantine for CDC recommendations, how will this impact our sick days? If our district legally responsible if someone contracts the virus on campus? School districts such as Homewood Flossmoor, Evanston, Stevenson, and Oak Park Rivers Forest are pursuing full remote plan due to the health and safety of their community, and our district should do the same. I do not want to choose between my job and my health, nor do I believe it is fair to ask that of teachers. If IHSA has announced plans to delay fall sports, which most of those are held outdoors, why would we not postpone in-person classes as well? As COVID-19 numbers in Illinois continue to spike daily, why would this be a safe time to put people together in one building? If students are given the option to choose full remote learning due to safety concerns, then I believe it is only fair to allow employees the same option. The Surgeon General and multiple other medical individuals expressed concern that now is not the time to open schools. And why are we not listening to medical advice? I believe in our staff members, and I know that we will continue to deliver meaningful lessons and make connections with our students while continuing remote learning. Students cannot thrive in high-stress environments, which is what in-person classes currently are. Students will be fearful. How can desks in classrooms be appropriately disinfected within passing periods? What about students or staff that have elevated risk factors? Will they be allowed to pursue remote learning? Given the crisis of the pandemic, I beg you to not allow in-person classes until we have enough information and evidence to safely open schools. I respectfully request that district we choose to continue remote learning for the upcoming school year. From Claire Devantis. My name is Claire Devantis. I am a teacher at Andrew High School and a member of our union. I love my job and desperately want to go back to school. I want everything to go back to normal. Right now, we are in the midst of a pandemic. Normal is not going to happen anytime soon. When we ended in-person instruction in March, the daily COVID case count was in the low double digits. Today, our case count was nearly 1,600. The fact that we are even debating whether or not to return to in-person instruction is unfortunate. Returning to school, even at 25% capacity, still exposes students and staff to hundreds of people a day. It isn't a matter of if someone gets COVID, it's when. How can the district and board guarantee that no one will get it when we return in August? Are we willing to sacrifice a student or staff member? The solution is simple. We must begin the school year remotely and remain remote until we have a consistent and substantial decrease in cases. I understand that this is not an easy decision to make, and that regardless of what is decided, someone will be left unhappy. Perhaps the district and board would reconsider making this kind of decision, one that is potential to kill or cause permanent long-term damage to the health and safety of students once they are able to meet in person to discuss and vote on it. Your health and well-being is very important. So is mine and that of my students. I implore you to consider what many of my colleagues are asking for, which is remote start to the school year. And our last comment is from Michelle Etchinson, Teachers Association President. One thing that is and has been abundantly clear to me as the association president is that the teachers in our association truly love their work. It's a calling. We are truly D230 proud. We miss our students and desperately want to return to our pre-COVID world, and other wishing, if only wishing, made it so. Sadly, we are in an unstable world fighting an invincible force with deadly capabilities and characteristics that are not fully understood by experts. I know that today the District 230 administration will be presenting a reopening plan to the board. This model will have our students in the building at 25% capacity. While the association understands the district's motivation as fierce protectors of our students, we are very concerned about how we will remain student and staff safety. The risk of return is very disconcerting at this time, especially with the rising numbers of cases in the state and in the towns our schools are located in. A survey of our association members this week showed that 60% of our teachers favor remote learning. As teachers, we all recognize how important in-person learning is. We also recognize that the hybrid model will be considered more socially distanced learning. Students will need to stay 6 feet apart from each other and keep their masks on all day. As teachers, we will not be able to take advantage of the strategies that we know work best with students, such as collaboration, grouping, cooperative learning, reciprocal teaching, and peer learning. It is possible that essential curricular minutes can be lost as teachers work to ensure that everyone is maintaining social distance, wearing masks, and hand sanitizing. Teachers and students, especially those with high-risk medical issues, will be trying to teach and learn in classrooms that they will have to hope are being cleaned properly. Students will have to change classrooms and walk in hallways that may not have been the proper ventilation needed to keep them from getting sick. Remote teaching learning in fall 2020 will not resemble the crisis teaching learning that occurred in March 2020. The new guidelines from ISB will allow us to teach new concepts, give grades and assessments, and create a remote environment that works for our students and staff. The association understands the decision to reopen schools is not one that the district or board takes lightly. We implore you to let classes start remotely. The association is certain that at this time, remote learning is the only safe option for our students, staff, and community. In closing, I will leave you with this thought. As an English teacher, I usually find irony enjoyable, but in this case, it is disturbing and dangerous. How prudent does it seem to open schools to thousands of children and adults when we have to conduct a board meeting virtually?
Thank you, Carla, for reading the comments, and they will be part of the minutes they'll be logged in the minutes. That concludes our presentation to the board, and it does. Sorry.
That's all right. The one thing I want to make sure is in the minutes is that, especially in response to some of the comments, this meeting was not held remotely. We were present for the meeting. So just so that is known. We were not remote when we held this meeting. Okay, at this time, I would like to ask for a motion, please.
I move the school board adopt the COVID-19 reopening plan approval resolution as presented.
Second.
Motion made by member O'Sullivan, seconded by member Murphy Peterson to approve the COVID reopening plan. This time I would ask for any comments or questions.
I'd like to address some of the issues that we just heard. This is an extraordinary historical time. And I think we have to acknowledge the elephant in the room. There isn't a plan that in existence that could possibly be drafted that can address all of the concerns of everybody in our district. We have to acknowledge that everybody comes from their own position, their own background, their own experiences, and consequently, this plan might not be perfect for their family. But I can't help but also notice, even in the objections that were read into the record, that everybody seems to be looking at this from their own perspective. As a board, we don't have that luxury. We have to look at what is the best interest of thousands of kids. And I do know that there are parents that are clamoring for their kids to get back in school. And anybody who thinks that teaching by way of Zoom or remote teaching is the same as face-to-face has never experienced either one, because there is no comparison. I personally, I don't want to break into anecdotes, but I taught a Zoom class last week and I taught a face-to-face class today to law enforcement. They are worlds apart. And delivery content by way of virtual teaching is a weak form of content delivery, period. It's not that it can't be done. It's not that our students can't learn something, but it's much less effective. and we have to acknowledge that. So I think as a board, we have to do what ultimately is best for everybody. Rarely would I ever be in a position where I would disagree with our teachers. Our teachers are the backbone of this district. And we've always had, I think, a really great relationship with them. And I hope that certainly continues. But we don't have the luxury of making decisions based upon family concerns and family issues that clearly affect and frankly tug at the heartstrings of all of us, that it may affect their individual families. We can only hope for the best for them individually. So I certainly hope that this vote, whatever it might be, recognizes that there is no perfection. We have to make the call, show some backbone, step up to the plate, and do what's best for everybody, the entirety of this district.
Thank you, Dave. Anyone else?
I totally agree, Dave, and this is unprecedented times. We don't know. I think that a lot of work and time has been put into this plan to try to really accommodate the majority as safely as possible. I did have a question, if anyone in this room could possibly answer. What have we done with our HVAC system filters? Have we changed to HEPA filters? Because it seemed like a lot of concern about air conditioning, which is in the news. We're not really supposed to be inside. So have we changed any of our filter systems in our buildings?
Dave, you may want to come to the microphone because I think
Go ahead, Dave.
this is Dave Keating, our Director of Facilities.
Yeah, currently, we change our filters as needed through the school district. We've got a set PM system that comes out every 3 months. So our filters are stronger. You put in stronger filters and you're going to starve your units, and you'll hear all air conditioning breakdowns. You'll have no airflow at all. So putting in a stronger air filter won't help. But we are in the process of looking into certain things that will help break down particles in the air, and we're trying our best. But all the school districts do the same thing in colleges, so we're trying our best to get all the equipment we can to help.
So we already looked at sites for our filters are changed regularly, but we're looking at rooftop units that are the large spaces that will, we're pretty confident of those that we're going to be able to do the airflow. So yeah, the HVAC system is definitely something that Dave's been working on, and John Lavelle under his leadership, and actually a name from the past 5 years is on roofs as we speak. Looking at that.
And then my next question would be, is there any plan or possibility to let the students and staff during lunch hours go outside?
Dave, you can
to
sit
have a
down, sorry.
break, to have fresh air?
Thank you, Dave.
Sorry. Yep.
Um,
Yes, part of the PE program that we're looking at is PE students is every day is to go outside. Have students take the mask off, go outside, walk the track. They're not going to be able to change in the PE locker room, but to walk the track, walk around the outside of the building when necessary, we believe it's important to take the masks off when they can. In the event that it's a rainy day as we move forward to, fall or whatever. We talked about mindfulness activities that can take place in the schools, and in the gyms are pretty large. Again, if we're at 25%, we're talking maybe 10 to 12 students. In those large spaces, we'd be able to possibly, I think we talked about working with them as well.
With the teachers and staff, would there be any time carved out for them to have the same? Because wearing a mask for 6 hours is going to be challenging.
Correct me if I'm wrong, I think teachers still have a planning period. So the teachers have a planning period. They teach typically 5. They have a planning period every day that they would be able to take it off. The teachers will be here before the students. They would at that point as well. And I believe if they're in their workspace, depending on some places they have their own classroom, some places they don't. In a workspace, there's barricades. So yes, there would be time for staff too. We agree. We're sitting here at a meeting right now for a couple hours.
And if a classroom has windows that can open, will they be allowed to open the windows to make them feel more comfortable and have fresh air circulating?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I think that was all my questions.
I got a quick question that just thought of. It's a little off topic, but are we going to have student teachers in the building in the fall?
I don't know that. Yes, Dr. Wheaton says yes. It could be student teachers. That program's still going through the schools, through the colleges, universities.
Well, that's something that we need to address as well, if I haven't already.
Mhm.
But I mean, Dave, it was, what he said is, I couldn't say it any better, so thank you. It was
Yes.
great.
Thanks, Dave.
My thoughts exactly, you have legitimate concerns from the teachers, but we also know that we have legitimate concerns from the students. And they've been out since March, and they need that connectedness, and need that social and emotional structure. So that's kind of what my thoughts are on that.
Okay, so Kate?
I just wanted to say thank you, Dave, because I think you summed up quite a bit of how we're feeling. I did have one question for Dr. Wheaton, as they were asking in regards to if they're sick, are our teachers and staff considered under the CARES Act?
Are the teachers under the CARES Act if they're sick?
They fall into the same first coronavirus response act.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, so.
One last thing, I want to publicly congratulate the committee for putting all the work in. I know this has been going on for a couple months, and there's a whole big organizational structure pyramid put together, so a whole lot of people put a lot of work in this. As Dave mentioned, there's no perfect plan, but it looks like you've thought of everything you could possibly think of, although you never know nowadays. But just want to publicly thank you all for doing a whole lot of work, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you, sir.
One more thing. One more thing, and for the public that's watching us. Also, as the numbers change,
Mhm.
this could get shut down anyway. Okay, the governor could shut us all back in, and then we have to follow we have to follow what the state mandates. We are a public school. So just echoing what Dave mentioned at the beginning of this, as the board has to do what's right for the majority. And for the majority, it seems that the families really understand and know that their kids need, some kids, a lot of kids, need in-person teaching. Some kids can handle the remote. This is a hard time for both, because even being at 25% is not going to be the same. The schools are going to be very different irregardless, but a lot of kids do need to be in the building, seeing their teacher, sitting in a desk, and having as traditional of a day as they possibly can. So we really are sensitive to all the factors. We truly are.
Yeah, one last thing, Dr. Gay mentioned before, this thing is really flexible, this plan.
Yes.
The chance of us implementing this on the 12th or whatever they are, and then again on the 20th, and then again on the 24th, and the chances of something changing is, pretty likely, considering all the change been going on since March, so.
And that's
Something
true.
to keep in mind, this is a flexible plan.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but yeah, that's true. And even if the board approves this and we're in the 25%, we don't have a deadline, we may phase in moving up forward as we move forward. And we will, we have to have a plan, so we have a structure, so we can do the next steps that are necessary to be planning, as we know.
We have to
schools.
start somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I do think you alluded to it in your presentation, but if in fact there was some type of unfortunate, suddenly all kinds of people started becoming infected, that there was a break, we could go right to remote immediately.
100%. This plan allows us to easily transition to a fully remote plan, because every Wednesday, no matter what program, we have 25%, 30%, whatever, every Wednesday is fully remote. Asynchronous. Sorry, guys, they're looking at me. Synchronous. So to transition to fully remote, we think is seamless. At any time.
It's a tremendous amount of work that
It
goes
is.
into this.
It's-
A tremendous amount of work. Trying to think of every conceivable thing and cover it is, it's just phenomenal that you guys, worked. And I know, like somebody said, you got to turn on a dime. You got to pivot because you've got everything in place and you think you're almost done. And then all of a sudden, oh no, wait, no, it's different.
Mhm.
So it is really a difficult task. Thank you for doing it. It's a tough thing to decide on. It really is. It's a really hard decision to make.
Yes, ma'am.
So, anybody else have anything else? All right, then I guess I'll just wrap it up, and, again, kind of working off of what Dave said. I mean, this is a very difficult decision for the board. It's something that we do not take lightly, and there's a lot of issues here. We understand the teachers' issues. We understand the students' issues. Many of us have either ourselves or our spouses that are essential workers that have to deal with this on a daily basis. Many of us are out working now and dealing with this on a daily basis. It's just life that has to be dealt with, and sometimes it's not the easiest thing to do. What I would say right now is, and kind of as Pat said, and looking at our students, you know, we mentioned a lot about the concern of the students contracting COVID or the teachers, but the one piece that wasn't mentioned by anybody is the social emotional piece of our students. We don't know what's going on in the mind of those students while they've been sitting home for months, not having contact with their friends, with their companions, missing out on a lot of things that kids their age should be able to participate in. And I think that also has to be taken into consideration that there are a lot of other issues here besides COVID. Yes, COVID is the most important overriding issue. And is it a concern? Of course it is. I'm not waving it off or taking it lightly. But the point I'm trying to make is that I believe right now it is essential for our students to get back to some type of normalcy. And as a result of that, I feel that our teachers have become essential workers. And as a result of that, I think it's time that we get them back in the classroom with our students and do this as best as we can. We have the possibility that we have to go backwards, and we all understand that. But the plan is flexible enough to take that into consideration. And on the other hand, we also understand, as we've said a number of times, this plan has been gone through numerous times to try to look at every single flaw and every single possibility of something going wrong to make sure that we could put controls in place. Nothing is flawless, nothing is perfect, nothing can guarantee anything. And I hate to use this phrase because, you know, it's used all the time, but nothing is guaranteed. And all we can do is the best we possibly can do and move forward. So if no one else has any comments, Lisa, let's vote.
Member O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
Member Gracias?
Yes.
Member Murphy Peterson?
Yes.
Member Dalton?
Yes.
Member Hardick? Member Saratori?
Yes, the motion passes. The reopening plan is approved. Once again, thank you, everyone, and the meeting is adjourned at, oh, I'm sorry, excuse me. Excuse me. Go ahead, because I have to get a motion.
We will, now, you know, there's a lot of work ahead of us, and we're prepared to do this, and we're gonna be, as many of you guys said, we're gonna be watching what's happening out there. We will, you know, we will continue to work with our amazing associations, all three associations, our teachers, our food, and our ESP associations, to work to get as we transition into the next phase. And we're going to be deliberate, we're going to be meaningful, we're going to be thoughtful as we move with our staffs and with our students as we bring people back in a very deliberate way. And we're not, there's not a race. We're not trying to be the first district to have 100% back. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is there's some continuity. So I thank the board for their support.
Yeah, and we would expect no less. So, again, thank you. All right, now at this time, I'd ask for a motion to adjourn.
Or do you want the motion for to vote this in? No, we voted.
You just did.
So just a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, we voted in 6-0.
Yeah,
So
we voted
moved.
in. Now we just need the motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right, motion made by member Murphy Peterson, seconded by member Dalton to adjourn. And we vote, please.
Member O'Sullivan?
Yes.
Member O'Connor?
Yes.
Member Gracias?
Yes.
Member Murphy Peterson?
Yes.
Member Dalton?
Yes.
Member Saratori?
Yes, we are adjourned at 7:39 PM. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you.